If you're asked to design an Excel worksheet, the first thing to do is to determine what the worksheet needs to do and what data it will need to make its calculations. Sketching out the basic design on paper first will give you an idea as to how everything should be laid out. It's traditional and expected that cells will have labels, and that these labels will be either placed above them or to their immediate left. Here these cells have labels placed above them, and on the loan repayment calculator that we created in an earlier video, the cells over here have labels to their immediate left. Maintaining consistency like this will mean that anybody looking at the worksheet later on will understand exactly what the worksheet is saying. Make sure always to label your cells with a description as to what is in the cell. This is important because even if you know what's in the cell, other people coming along at a later time may not. If you're creating something like the invoice shown here, notice that we've designed this so that it looks pretty much like what a paper invoice might look like. In fact, I have a paper invoice open here in Microsoft Word, and you can see that the invoice has details as to who it's going to, and then a sort of general layout in a table format with the totals along the bottom. And if we go back to our Excel invoice, you'll see that it has pretty much the same sort of look. Details at the top here for the invoice number and details of who the invoice is going to, then the line items and the totals. If you're creating something like an invoice, then making it look like its paper equivalent will help your user to understand what they're seeing, because the spreadsheet layout will mimic the paper form. Maintaining consistency in your design with what users expect to see is a great idea. Other things that you can do when you're designing a worksheet include adding things like this data validation list that we created in an earlier video. This will help speed up the data entry process for your user. It will be helpful not only by speeding things up but also maintaining consistency, because users only select from a limited number of options. The worksheet won't have spelling errors in it, and any other worksheets that rely on this data, for example, summarizing those results, won't result in errors because of incorrect spelling or wrongly entered descriptions. One other thing to consider when you're designing a worksheet is how you place areas on a worksheet. Here I have a worksheet with two separate data areas, and they're placed side by side. While this might look attractive, it's actually fraught with difficulty. If I want to remove this line from this particular data area, note how it's going to impact the one to its immediate right. Because these two data areas share rows, they're going to impact each other when we make changes to a row. Likewise, if I stack them above each other, there are inherent problems here. Here a data area is immediately under the other one, and I want to narrow this column because it's way too wide for the data that I'm seeing here. But look what's happened when I do that to the data area above. This data area here needs a wide column B. This one needs a narrow one. The solution is not to put the data areas alongside or above and below each other, but to stagger them on the worksheet. I'm just going to delete these so that we can see how these now would look. If I stagger these two worksheet areas, you can see that they don't share any columns or any rows, so they're entirely independent of each other. If you really need to place two separate sets of data on a worksheet, this is the ideal arrangement to use.